Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of the Sunday Guardian show by Joyeeta Basu. I'm the editor of the Sunday Guardian newspaper, and today I want to speak of the Qatar World Cup, rather on what I would say a pathetic host Qatar is of the World Cup, proving to be of the World Cup, with the action on the field getting nearly hijacked by a stream of controversies. In fact, if you ask me, this should serve as a lesson to football's world body FIFA that oil money and shiny buildings do not make every tiny patch of land masquerading as a country a suitable host for the greatest show on earth, the World Cup football. Now, to top that, to use the platform for political messaging, as in the case of India. That's what Qatar is doing. But first, what is Qatar's claim to football fame? Now, all that it has done till date is win the Asia Cup in 2019, one win out of 10 appearances. Now, Sunday's Qatar-Ecuador opening match, which Qatar lost to Ecuador, showed that they cannot even play football. Okay, and in fact, Qatar became the first host nation ever to lose the inaugural match. Now, that Qatar doesn't even have a culture of football became obvious when the Qatari audience, they started to leave the stadium much before the match ended. And as a result, what happened? A World Cup match was played in a half-empty stadium. Just imagine. Now, there are anyway allegations that Qatar bribed top FIFA officials to get the hosting rights of the World Cup. Now, we are ready to ignore such allegations because they are not proven. Now, however, the least that Qatar could have done was to put its best foot forward during the World Cup, to showcase its culture, its history, and to promote itself as one of the top tourist destinations of the world. But what did Qatar do instead? It started parading the most, I would say, in-your-face conservatism that the rest of the world has ever seen. Now, while a country's culture must be respected by visitors, it is unfathomable why Qatar will not be a little flexible for the 1.2 million football fans visiting that country. Now, take the instance of stopping the sale of beer inside stadiums, thus depriving the fans of a drink that is intrinsic to the game of football. Now, Qatar was contract bound to do so, supply beer, but it reneged on the contract at the last moment because it decided to adhere to its policy of not allowing drinking in public. And so everyone, even visitors, have to suffer. In fact, in 2012, the then FIFA Secretary General, Jerome Valk, had said that FIFA would not compromise with Qatar on the availability of alcohol in stadiums. But it did. Now, however, alcohol is available inside the stadium, but only for the uber rich with premium tickets in some exclusive sections. In fact, if you look at it, this World Cup is an unending tale of arm twisting by the Qataris and the FIFA succumbing to that pressure. Now, Qatar has also successfully put pressure on FIFA to stop players from wearing their One Love armband, now which is as a mark of protest against Qatar criminalizing homosexuality. Now, Qatar has imposed dressing restrictions too on the visitors, with revealing clothes not allowed. And for even the minutest transgressions, the punishment is likely to be jail. I mean, how suffocating it must be, apart from being a tourism killer. You see, the fundamental problem is that Qatar wants the rest of the world to respect its religious beliefs and customs, but it is not ready to return that courtesy. You see, it has gone to the extent of banning kosher food, which the Jewish people have for religious reasons. Now, apart from disallowing them to perform Sabbath and other prayers. As a result, reports say thousands of Jewish football fans, particularly from the United States of America, have cancelled their trip to Qatar. And this in spite of Qatar having one of the largest American bases in the Gulf. You see, Qatar has obviously never heard of the Indian philosophy of Atithi Devo Bhava. A guest is God. And then don't forget the controversy over Qatar's inhuman treatment of its construction workers, over 6,000 of whom have died, with at least nearly 3,000 of them Indian. And as if all this controversy was not enough, Qatar has gone a step ahead and invited a special guest, Zakir Naik, who is a fugitive evangelist and is one of India's most wanted. A radical preacher of hate and terrorism, Zakir Naik is also guilty of money laundering. He has been banned even by Britain for praising Osama bin Laden and saying all Muslims should become terrorists. Yes, he said that. But now this man will deliver sermons in Qatar during the entire period of the World Cup. Now, obviously, Qatar is trying to do two things with this. First, it is trying to send a message to India, a political message. Second, it is trying to be the upholder of the faith and the leader of the Islamic Ummah, Islamic world. Now, don't forget that Qatar was in the forefront of the protests in the Gulf over Nupur Sharma's derogatory comments. Though I had the gall to call the Indian ambassador and chide him on the issue. Worse, it was around that time that the then Indian Vice President Venkaiah Naidu was visiting Qatar, and his dinner, which was to be hosted by the Deputy Emir of Qatar, was abruptly cancelled. Now, apparently because of some medical reasons, but there are no takers for that. You see, Qatar is also a problem country. In 2017, Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries had severed diplomatic ties with Qatar, accusing it of backing terrorism against them. Relations were restored only in January 2021. In fact, sections of Qataris are believed to be funding radical extremist activities against other countries too. It is also home to the extremely anti-India television channel Al Jazeera, which keeps trying to whip up passions against India. And not only in the Gulf, but in our part of the world too. And don't forget the 8 Indian retired Navy people who have been detained by Qatar illegally and are now rotting in Qatari prisons at present. You see, Qatar is a tiny country with a GDP, guess how much? In the range of $274 billion, which is somewhat similar to Mumbai's GDP. It has the highest per capita income in the world because it has a small population of about 3 million people. And just imagine how much they spent on the World Cup. $220 billion, almost their whole GDP, and more than what the last 8 World Cups have spent together. But after spending all that money, it must be incredibly sad to be the host of one of the most controversial World Cups ever, and controversial for all non-football reasons. You see, Qatar cannot hide its grave failings under the cover of Islamophobia. Criticizing its inhuman policies does not amount to Islamophobia. It's a legitimate criticism of a country that still lives in the dark ages, however modern and glittering it may appear from the outside. Now, if Qatar is hosting the World Cup because it wants prestige on the world stage, it will never get that. Just imagine 1.2 million football fans visiting Qatar and then spreading the message to the world how regressive that country is, where the threat of incarceration hangs on everyone's head for perceived insults to local culture and customs. As for New Delhi, in protest against Zakir Naik's presence in Qatar, it should cancel all official visits to that country to watch matches, even the final match. Now, even if those invitations have come, India needs to summon Qatar's ambassador and read the riot act to him. Now, India has been managing its differences with Qatar primarily because it is one of India's main gas suppliers, as well as to ensure that no harm comes to the huge diaspora working in that country. But a message must be given. Qatar needs a rap on the knuckles for being so badly behaved, and India must deliver it. Thank you for watching. Until the next time.